She beamed at him, eyes shining. Then maybe I could help other kids there too. The bond between them deepened. There were still moments of frustration, tired evenings, and days when the weight of life pressed heavily on John's shoulders. But each challenge felt lighter because of the support they had received, because of the hope they carried, because of the love that never wavered. The doll sat on Lily's shelf as a quiet reminder of the moment when life shifted. But the lessons it brought were bigger than anything it could ever represent. John noticed how much Lily had changed in her interactions with others. She was kind, patient, and empathetic in a way that reflected not just her personality but the example he had set for her. He saw her share toys, include children who were shy, and comfort those who felt left out. He realized that the gift they had received wasn't just a toy. A letter, or resources, it was the spark of possibility. The idea that kindness could ripple outward. One evening, they were having dinner together, a quiet family moment in their small kitchen. Lily was chattering about her day at school, the drawings she had shared, and the games she had played with friends. John listened, smiling and asking questions. Then she looked up at him seriously. "Daddy, do you think the man knows how much he helped us?" John thought about it. "I think he does. I think that's why he did it." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "I want to help people like he helped us." John's chest tightened. "And you will, Lily? You already are." As months turned into a year, John and Lily's lives had transformed in subtle but profound ways. They had opportunities they didn't have before. They had stability and hope. They had the quiet assurance that they weren't alone in the world. And they had each other, which was the most important thing of all. One weekend, the man invited them to a small gathering of families he had been helping. Lily took her drawings. John prepared a few words to share, and together they attended. The room was filled with laughter, conversations, and creativity. Children shared their stories. Parents exchanged advice. And the atmosphere was warm, supportive, and full of possibility. During the event, John noticed something extraordinary. Families were helping each other in ways he had never imagined. Parents were exchanging tips for work. Children were teaching each other small skills, and everyone was sharing encouragement. The ripple effect of kindness was real, tangible, and beautiful. John realized that the gift they had received, the doll, the support, the belief, had set off something much bigger. Something that went beyond their small apartment, beyond their struggles, beyond anything he could have imagined. Lily ran up to him, holding a drawing she had made specifically for the man. It was full of color, filled with little characters, smiling, holding hands, and sharing gifts. "Daddy, I made this for him," she said. "Thank you for helping me be brave." John felt tears rise in his eyes. "It's beautiful, Lily. I'm sure he'll love it." When they presented it to the man, he studied it carefully, nodding quietly. "It's perfect," he said. "You've captured something very important." John realized in that moment what had been missing in so many of their lives before, a sense of connection, a sense that actions mattered, and that small gestures could have enormous impact. The doll had been the beginning, but the story of what followed, the choices they made, the opportunities they embraced, the hope they carried forward, was the real gift. Back at home, Lily held the doll that night, but she no longer needed it to feel special. She had grown beyond that. She knew now that joy, hope, and kindness were bigger than any object. John watched her quietly, proud, grateful, and full of love. He understood that the true lesson of their journey was not what they received, what they became. John knew life would still bring challenges. Work would still be demanding. Unexpected difficulties would still arise. But he also knew something else. He and Lily had the tools to face them. They had hope, resilience, connection, and love. And they had a quiet understanding that generosity, belief, and kindness could move mountains even in small, human ways. As they sat together that evening, talking about the day, laughing over small stories, and planning new projects for Lily's art, John realized that their journey had come full circle. The doll had sparked the chain of events, but the real story was about family, perseverance, and the impact one kind person could make. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by crayons, drawings, and the soft glow of a lamp, John made a promise to himself. To always cherish these moments, to always teach Lily the power of kindness, and to always remember that even the smallest gestures could change lives forever. John had always believed that life was full of small joys, even when it was hard. He had learned early on that happiness wasn't about money or fancy things, but about the moments you shared with people you loved. And for him, those moments always revolved around his little daughter, Lily. From the moment she had come into his life, he had devoted every ounce of energy he had to make her feel safe, loved, and happy. Being a single father wasn't easy, but he never thought of giving up. Every morning, John woke up before dawn. The house was quiet, and the soft light of the early morning crept through the curtains. He would make a cup of coffee, not because he had the best one, but because it gave him a few minutes to gather his thoughts before the day began. He knew today, like every day, would be a long one. After getting ready, he would tiptoe to Lily's room to make sure she was still sleeping peacefully. Sometimes he watched her for a few minutes, just to see the rise and fall of her chest, the soft movements of her tiny hands, and the peaceful expression on her face. That sight alone gave him strength to face the struggles ahead. Lily, however, was never one to sleep late. She had a curiosity and energy that could fill a whole room. On this particular morning, she jumped out of bed with a burst of excitement, humming a tune she had made up herself. John smiled as he watched her get ready. She had a small collection of clothes and toys, not much compared to other kids, but she treated them like treasures. Every button, every doll, every crayon she had was precious in her eyes. John made sure she never felt the absence of things she didn't have. He had promised himself that no matter how little they had, he would always make life feel rich for her. Breakfast was a quiet affair. John tried to make it special whenever he could, even if it was just a piece of toast or some cereal. They would sit at the small kitchen table, Lily chatting about her little adventures, and John listening, laughing, and offering encouragement. Today, however, Lily had something different on her mind. She had recently seen a new doll in the store window, a Barbie with long, shiny hair and a beautiful dress. She had been talking about it nonstop for days, imagining all the stories she could create with it. John knew that doll was expensive, far more than he could afford, but he didn't want to crush her excitement. "Daddy, you think I could get that doll?" Lily asked, her eyes wide and sparkling. John felt a tightness in his chest. He wanted to say yes more than anything, but he knew the truth. "Well, we'll see," he said softly, forcing a smile. "Maybe we can find something special for you soon." Lily frowned slightly but nodded. She was used to her father's gentle honesty. She didn't ask further, knowing that John did his best. But inside, her small heart wished she could hold that doll just for a little while. She imagined tea parties, adventures, bedtime stories where her doll was the main character. After breakfast, John got ready for work. He worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to make ends meet. The rent was always due, bills never seemed to stop, and there were days when he wondered if he would ever catch a break. But when he saw Lily smile, all the exhaustion melted away. Her happiness was his motivation, her laughter his reward. Walking to the bus stop, Lily held his hand tightly. She was small, but she had a determination that reminded him of someone much older. "Daddy, maybe we can make the doll ourselves," she said. John chuckled. He loved her imagination. "Maybe we can," he said, thinking of ways to create little surprises for her, even if it wasn't the doll in the store. At work, John tried to focus on his tasks, but his mind often drifted back to Lily and her wish. He worked as a delivery worker, moving packages from one place to another, sometimes heavy, sometimes fragile. It was exhausting work, and he didn't get much recognition for it. But he had learned to be proud of the fact that he provided for his daughter, no matter how small the contributions seemed. He counted each dollar, each saved cent, dreaming of the day he could give Lily a life without constant worry. Evenings were the hardest. When he returned home, tired and aching, he still had to be present for Lily. Homework, playtime, and bedtime routines filled the hours. But he never complained. Seeing Lily's eyes light up as they played board games, read stories, or simply talked about her day made all the fatigue disappear. He cherished those moments, knowing that they were building memories that would last a lifetime. One evening, after tucking Lily into bed, John sat alone in the living room. The house was quiet, and the dim light of the lamp created shadows on the walls. He thought about the doll again, about how much it meant to Lily. He wished he could find a way to make her dream come true. He knew he couldn't just buy, if there were bills to pay, food to put on the table, and emergencies to prepare for, but the longing in his daughter's voice haunted him. He remembered the small joys from his own childhood, how a simple toy could feel like the world. He wanted Lily to experience that same happiness, to feel the magic in small things. He thought of the weekends when they would make paper dolls, draw pictures, and create stories together. Those were happy times, but he knew she wanted something real. Something tangible she could hold in her hands and play with. Days went by, each one blending into the next. Lily never gave up hope. She would mention the doll casually, almost as if testing her father's resolve. And John would smile and nod, telling himself he had to find a way. He started looking at every opportunity, saving pennies, checking online marketplaces, and even asking friends for advice. But no matter how hard he tried, the doll remained out of reach. One Saturday, John took Lily to the park. They sat on a bench, watching other children play with toys and dolls. Lily's eyes followed them, and John felt a pang of sadness. "Daddy, do you think someday I could have a doll like that?" she asked softly. John hugged her tightly, wishing he could give her the world. "Someday, Lily. I promise, someday." That night, as he lay awake, John thought about the future. He didn't know how he would manage to get the doll, but he knew he couldn't let Lily's hope fade. He promised himself that no matter how hard it was, he would find a way. He would work harder, save more, and never let her feel the disappointment that life sometimes brings. Little did he know, help was closer than he thought. Sometimes life has a way of surprising even the most careful plans. And sometimes a single wish from a child can change everything, not just for her, but for those around her as well. John didn't know it yet. But the story of Lily's wish was about to take a turn he could never have imagined. A turn that would show him the power of kindness, generosity, and the incredible ways people can touch each other's lives. For now, though, all he could do was hold on to hope, work hard, and dream alongside his daughter, cherishing every laugh, every hug, and every small moment that made life worth living. The days after that park visit felt longer than usual for John. Every time he looked at Lily, he saw the tiny spark of hope in her eyes, the one that refused to dim, no matter how much reality said otherwise. She was always smiling, always asking questions, always imagining wonderful stories and adventures. But John knew that behind those bright eyes, there was a longing for something she didn't have, something he couldn't provide. It wasn't just about a toy. To Lily, it was a symbol of joy, of being special, of knowing that her wishes mattered. And John, being the father he was, felt the weight of that wish more heavily than anything else. He tried to distract her with small surprises, sometimes a coloring book, sometimes a little snack she liked, but nothing seemed to replace that one desire she had. Every evening, after dinner, Lily would sit quietly by the window and look at the world outside, sometimes talking to John about what she saw. "Daddy, maybe tomorrow someone will bring me a doll," she would say, her voice soft but hopeful. John would nod, giving her a gentle smile, telling her that life sometimes had surprises if you waited long enough. John thought about the doll constantly. He searched online marketplaces, secondhand shops, and even community swap groups. He asked his coworkers if they knew of any affordable ways to get it. Every effort seemed to end in disappointment. Some dolls were too expensive, others were sold out, and a few were damaged or missing pieces. Each failed attempt left him feeling heavier, as if the burden of providing joy for his daughter was something he could never carry. He didn't show it to Lily, of course. He never let her see the worry in his eyes or the tightness in his chest. He knew she would pick up on it and feel guilty, and he didn't want that. Instead, he laughed with her, made up games, and created little adventures in their small living room. They would build castles out of pillows, have tea parties with her stuffed animals, and pretend that ordinary objects were magical treasures. Lily's imagination was endless. John marveled at how she could turn anything into fun. Still, every now and then when Lily fell asleep, John would sit alone and let his thoughts drift. He remembered his own childhood, the toys he had wished for but never received, and how sometimes a single gift could make a memory last forever. He wanted that for Lily. More than anything, he wanted her to feel that kind of magic. The feeling that someone cared enough to make her wish come true. It wasn't about the doll itself. It was about the love and attention behind it. The feeling that she mattered in a world that sometimes seemed unfair. One rainy afternoon, John decided to take Lily to the small community center, where local families sometimes gathered for events and activities. He hoped it would cheer her up. The center was cozy, with a few tables for crafts, a play area for kids, and a shelf with donated toys. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give Lily a little excitement. As they entered, her eyes widened at the sight of children laughing, painting, and playing together. For a moment, she forgot about the doll entirely and ran toward the play area. Leaving John to watch her with a soft smile, while Lily played, John wandered near the donated toys shelf. Most of the toys were simple and worn, but some were treasures waiting for a second life. He picked up a small set of building blocks and showed it to Lily when she ran back. She clapped her hands in delight, her smile lighting up the room. "Thank you, Daddy," she said, hugging him tightly. John hugged her back, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. Relief because she was happy, and sadness because he wished he could give her more. Days turned into weeks, and John's search for the doll continued quietly. He saved every spare cent he could, cutting back on small luxuries like a cup of coffee or a simple snack. He even started walking to work instead of taking the bus, just to save a little money each day. The sacrifices were small, but they added up slowly, month by month. John didn't mind the effort. What mattered was the smile on Lily's face and the hope that one day he could give her exactly what she wanted at night. After Lily had fallen asleep, John would sometimes sit by the window, staring out at the streetlights and imagining a brighter future. He thought about how much he wanted to give her, not just material things, but confidence, joy, and memories she would carry with her forever. He wanted her to grow up believing that the world was kind, that good people existed, and that sometimes magic could happen when you least expected it. Lily, meanwhile, continued to show resilience beyond her years. She didn't complain, she didn't sulk, and she never stopped imagining. One evening, she brought out her small notebook, a collection of sketches and stories she had been keeping for months. She handed it to John and said, "Look, Daddy, I drew my doll." In the sketch, the doll had a bright smile, long hair, and a beautiful dress. John examined the drawing carefully, noticing the care and detail she had put into it. His heart swelled with pride and love. Even though she didn't have the doll, she had created one in her own way. "Wow. Lily," he said softly, holding back tears. "This is amazing. You have such a big imagination." She beamed, clearly proud of her work. "I know, Daddy. Maybe one day I'll have a real one too." John nodded, squeezing her hand gently. One day he promised, knowing in his heart that he would do everything he could to make that promise come true. The struggle continued in small, silent ways. John worked extra hours, took odd jobs whenever he could, and always returned home exhausted. Yet, he never let Lily feel the burden. If anything, he tried harder to create moments of happiness. He invented little games with household items, told her bedtime stories with endless characters and adventures, and even made up songs that they could sing together. Each night, when Lily drifted off to sleep, she did so with a sense of wonder. Believing that the world was a place of possibility, John often wondered if he was doing enough, if his efforts were making a real difference. He worried that one day Lily would see the world differently, that she would feel the lack of what he couldn't provide. But then he would see her laugh uncontrollably at something simpler, shadow on the wall. A funny noise outside, a story he had made up, and he would know that for now she was happy. That happiness was worth every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, John came home to find Lily waiting by the door. In her small hands, she held a tiny piece of paper, carefully folded. "Daddy, I made you a surprise," she said. John smiled, kneeling down to her level. She handed him the paper, and he opened it to find a little note with her handwriting. "I love you, Daddy. One day we will get the doll." His heart ached with love and pride. Even in the face of disappointment, she held on to hope and kindness. He hugged her tightly, whispering, "I love you too, Lily, and yes, one day we will." The next morning, John decided to visit the local toy stores again, hoping to find any opportunity, any deal, any chance to make Lily's wish come true. He walked through aisles filled with bright colors, plastic packaging, and cheerful music. He examined every shelf, checked every price tag, and even asked the staff if they knew of upcoming sales or promotions. His hope remained quiet but steady. Like a small flame refusing to go out, Lily noticed his determination and tried to help in her own way. She drew little pictures, made lists of all the things she liked, and even created a little doll plan, imagining what she would do if she had it. John looked at her efforts and smiled. Even if they didn't get the doll soon, he realized that these moments of shared hope were just as important. They were building a bond that no money could ever buy. Weeks passed and John's exhaustion grew, but so did his resolve. He refused to give up, refusing to let his daughter feel that the world was unfair. He reminded himself that sometimes the hardest efforts lead to the most meaningful rewards. And though he didn't know it yet, something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would change everything for both of them. Something that would make all of their struggle worthwhile. For now, they continued to live day by day, finding joy in the small things, laughing together, and holding on to the hope that dreams, even the smallest ones, could come true. John's love for Lily was unwavering, and Lily's hope was relentless. Together, they navigated the challenges of life, proving that even in hardship, happiness could be found, and that sometimes, the most ordinary days could lead to extraordinary surprises. And so, the story of John and Lily's struggle continued. Each day building anticipation, each moment a testament to love, patience, and the power of believing that one day, dreams could become reality. Life continued in its quiet, demanding rhythm. John woke early, worked long hours, and came home tired but present. Lily stayed hopeful, gentle, and patient in a way that sometimes made John feel both proud and guilty at the same time. She never complained, never begged. She only believed. And that belief pushed John forward even on days when his body felt heavy and his spirit felt thin. One afternoon, after finishing a delivery job earlier than usual, John decided to walk instead of taking the bus. The weather was calm, not too hot, not too cold. Lily was with him, holding his hand and skipping along the sidewalk, pointing at birds, cars, and anything that caught her attention. She talked the whole way, telling him about a story she had made up where a doll could talk and go on adventures. As they passed through a busy street, Lily suddenly stopped, her eyes fixed on a large glass window filled with toys. Bright colors, shiny boxes, smiling faces on packaging. Right in the center, standing tall on a small platform, was the Barbie doll she had been dreaming about. John felt her grip tighten around his fingers. "Daddy," she whispered, almost afraid to say it out loud. "That's the one." John followed her gaze. His heart sank, then lifted, then sank again. The doll looked even more beautiful than he remembered. Perfect hair, perfect dress, perfect smile. It stood there like it belonged to a different world, one that felt very far away from where they stood. Lily didn't ask for it. She didn't cry. She just looked. John crouched beside her. "It's pretty," he said softly. She nodded. "I know. I just wanted to see it again." They stood there for a few seconds longer. Then Lily smiled and tugged his hand. "It's okay, Daddy. We can go now." That was the moment something inside John shifted. Not anger. Not sadness. Something deeper. Determination mixed with quiet frustration. He hated that she had learned so early how to let go of things she wanted. He hated that she carried acceptance instead of expectation. As they turned to leave, a voice behind them spoke. "That doll seems very important." John turned around, surprised. Standing a few steps away was a man dressed simply. No flashy clothes. No expensive watch in plain sight. Just a calm face, kind eyes, and a gentle smile. He didn't look like someone trying to show off. He looked like someone observing the world carefully. John nodded politely. "It is to her." The man looked down at Lily. "You like dolls?" Lily nodded shyly. "Yes, sir. I like to tell stories with them." "That's a good thing," the man said. "Stories are powerful." John felt unsure. He wasn't used to strangers talking to his daughter, but something about the man's tone felt respectful. Not curious in a bad way. Just human. They exchanged a few words. Simple ones. Nothing deep. The man asked where Lily learned to draw so well. John explained that she taught herself mostly with scraps of paper and pencils. Lily showed one of her drawings from her small notebook. The man studied it carefully. "You have talent," he said honestly. Lily smiled, her shoulders relaxing. Then the man looked back at John. "You're doing a good job," he said quietly. John blinked. He didn't know why those words hit him so hard. Maybe because no one ever said them. He nodded, unsure how to respond. The man introduced himself only by his first name. Nothing more. No titles. No explanations. He didn't stay long. Just wished them well and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. John didn't think much of it at first. Life was full of brief encounters that led nowhere. But something about that moment stayed with him. The calmness. The way the man looked at Lily's drawing like it mattered. That evening, as John made dinner, Lily talked about the man. "He was nice," she said. "He didn't talk to me like a baby," John smiled. "You noticed that?" She nodded. "I liked that." A few days passed. Then something unusual happened. John received a call at work. The number was unfamiliar. He almost ignored it, but something told him to answer. The voice on the other end was calm and respectful. The man introduced himself again. "The same man from outside the toy store. I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said. "I wanted to ask if you and your daughter might come to a small community event this weekend." John hesitated. "What kind of event?" "Nothing formal," the man replied. "Just a local gathering. Families, food, music. I help organize things like that sometimes." John didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to invitations like this. But Lily loved gatherings, and he didn't see any harm. They agreed. On the day of the event, Lily wore her favorite dress. It wasn't new, but it was clean and carefully pressed. John wore his usual clothes. Nothing special. He didn't feel out of place, but he didn't feel comfortable either. The event was held at a large open space near the city. There were children running around, tables with food, people talking and laughing. It felt warm. Welcoming, the man greeted them with the same calm smile. He didn't treat John differently. He didn't ask personal questions. He simply included them. Lily joined other children to draw and play. John found himself talking to people he'd never met before. People from different walks of life. Some struggling. Some comfortable. All human. As the day went on, John noticed something strange. People treated the man with quiet respect. Not loud admiration. Not fear. Just respect. They listened when he spoke. They thanked him often. That's when John began to understand. This man wasn't just someone helping out. He was someone with influence, power, resources. Later that afternoon, while Lily played nearby, the man sat beside John. "I hope you don't mind me asking," he said. "But may I ask what you do for work?" John answered honestly. "And Lily's mother?" The man asked gently. John paused, then answered just as honestly. There was no pity in the man's eyes. Only understanding. "You remind me of someone I once knew," the man said quietly. "Someone who worked hard and never complained." John didn't know how to respond. He wasn't used to being seen before they left. The man knelt down to Lily's level again. "Keep drawing," he told her, "and keep telling stories." She nodded happily. That night, John couldn't sleep. His mind replayed the day. The conversations. The kindness. The strange feeling that something important was unfolding. A week later, another call came. This time, the man asked if he could visit them at home. John hesitated again, but agreed. When the man arrived, he didn't come alone. He carried a simple bag. Nothing flashy. He sat at their small table, drank the tea John offered, and listened. He listened as John spoke about work, about Lily, about life, about hopes that felt too big to say out loud. Then the man stood up and placed the bag on the table. "I want you to understand something," he said calmly. "This isn't charity. This is belief." John opened the bag slowly. Inside was the Barbie doll, the exact one from the store window. Lily froze. Her breath caught. She didn't scream. She didn't jump. She simply stared, like she was afraid the moment might disappear. "Is this?" she whispered. The man smiled. "Yes." Lily looked at her father, unsure if she was allowed to touch it. John's hands trembled as he nodded. "It's okay." She reached out carefully, holding the doll like it was something fragile and sacred. Tears filled John's eyes before he could stop them, but the man wasn't finished. "There's more," he said gently, "but that can wait." At that moment, John didn't care about anything else. Not money, not explanations. Just the look on his daughter's face. Dream had stepped out of a window display and into their small living room, and neither of them yet understood how much this moment would change their lives. The room felt different after that day. Not because the walls had changed or the furniture looked new, but because something inside the space felt lighter. The doll sat carefully on a small shelf in Lily's room. Not because she didn't want to play with it, but because she wanted to look at it first. She would stand there quietly, studying every detail, touching its hair gently. Almost as if she was afraid the moment might disappear if she moved too fast. John watched all of this with mixed emotions. Joy filled his heart every time he saw Lily smile, but there was also a quiet weight in his chest. He was grateful beyond words, yet unsure how to fully accept what had happened. A stranger had stepped into their lives and changed something so deeply personal. John wasn't used to help. He had learned to survive by standing on his own. And letting someone step in felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable. The man didn't push. He didn't explain everything at once. He simply checked in now and then, asking how Lily was doing, how school was going, how John was holding up. He spoke kindly, never in a way that made John feel small or dependent. That mattered more than anything. A few days later, the man returned. This time with a simple proposal. "I'd like to help in a way that lasts," he said calmly, sitting across from John at the small table. "Not just toys. Not just moments." John listened carefully, his hands folded together. "There's a program I support," the man continued. "It helps families who work hard but don't get enough chances. Education support, skill training, child programs." John's first instinct was to refuse, not out of pride, but out of fear. Fear of expectations, fear of strings attached, fear of disappointment. "I don't want charity," John said honestly. The man nodded. "I wouldn't offer it if that's what it was." He explained that the support would help Lily with school resources, books, creative tools. It would also give John access to training programs that could help him find better work, not handouts, opportunities. John didn't answer right away. That night, he lay awake, listening to Lily breathe softly in the next room. He thought about her future, about the long road ahead, about how tired he felt, and how much harder life could get if nothing changed. The next morning, Lily woke up early and brought her doll to the kitchen. "She's hungry," she said seriously. John smiled despite himself. He watched Lily sit the doll beside her and pretend to feed it cereal. The joy was quiet but deep. That was when John understood something important. Accepting help didn't make him weak. Refusing it might limit his daughter's future, so he agreed. Life didn't change overnight. There were no sudden luxuries, no dramatic shifts. But small things began to add up. Lily received new books and art supplies. Not expensive, just thoughtful. She spent hours drawing, coloring, writing small stories. Her confidence grew. Her teachers noticed. They told John how focused she was, how curious, how kind to other children. John enrolled in training sessions during evenings. It wasn't easy. He was tired, older than most of the other students, and sometimes felt out of place. But he kept going. He remembered Lily's smile. He remembered the man's words about belief. Slowly, doors opened. John found steadier work. Better hours? Slightly better pay? Enough to breathe a little easier. Enough to stop counting every coin so tightly. Enough to feel like tomorrow might not always be a struggle. The man remained present, but distant at the same time. He didn't interfere. He didn't control. He checked in, encouraged, and stepped back. One afternoon, Lily came home from school, holding a paper. "They want me to join an art group." "Ch," she said, almost unsure. John read the note carefully. It was an after-school program focused on creativity. "Free of cost? Do you want to?" John asked. She nodded slowly. "Yes, but only if you can come see my drawings sometimes. I wouldn't miss it," he said. Watching Lily grow into herself was something John had never imagined so clearly before. She spoke more confidently. She asked bigger questions. She dreamed out loud. One evening, while helping her clean up her drawings, Lily looked up at him. "Daddy," she said, "do you think I can help other kids someday?" John paused. "Help them how?" Like, how we were helped. The words stayed with him long after she went to bed. Months passed. The seasons changed. Their home felt warmer, not because of money, but because of stability. John wasn't constantly afraid anymore. Not of the next bill. Not of tomorrow. One day the man invited them to a small gathering again. This time it was quieter. Fewer people. More personal, he asked Lily to bring some of her drawings. She laid them out carefully on a table. The man studied each one with attention. "You tell stories with your pictures," he said. She nodded proudly. "My daddy says stories matter." "He's right," the man replied. Later that evening, as Lily played nearby, the man spoke to John privately. "You didn't just accept help," he said. "You used it well." John felt emotion rise in his chest. "I just did what any parent would do." "Not everyone does," the man replied gently. Before they left, the man handed John an envelope. "There's no rush to open it," he said. John waited until they were home. Inside was a letter. Not money, not contracts. It was an invitation, an offer to collaborate, to help John train others, to support families like his own, to turn his experience into something useful for others. John sat quietly for a long time. He realized then that the doll had never been the point. It had been the door, a door to dignity, to trust, to possibility. That night Lily fell asleep with her doll beside her, one hand resting on its hair. John stood in the doorway and watched her. He understood now that help, when given with respect, doesn't take anything away. It builds something new. And their story wasn't just about receiving anymore. It was about becoming part of something bigger, something lasting, something that would continue long after a single wish came true. Life had changed in ways John could hardly describe, yet nothing about it felt flashy or sudden. There were no large celebrations, no instant wealth, no dramatic shifts. The changes were quiet, gentle, but they were real. Every day felt like a little step forward, a little more freedom, a little more hope. And each step was enough to remind John why he had kept going for so long. Lily had grown more confident in herself. As the art program she had joined at school had become a second home. She spent hours drawing, creating little stories on paper, and sharing them with her friends. Teachers noticed how much her imagination had blossomed. They complimented her on her creativity, her attention to detail, and the care she put into everything she made. But what made John proudest was something no teacher could measure: Lily's kindness. She had begun sharing her art with younger children, helping them create their own stories, encouraging them when they felt unsure. One afternoon, after school, Lily came home carrying a small stack of drawings. "Daddy, look," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "These are for my friends in the art group. They wanted me to teach them how to draw like this." John knelt beside her, carefully looking through each picture. They were simple, colorful, full of imagination. But there was something else in them, too, a sense of confidence, a quiet strength that told him his daughter had grown into herself. "Lily," he said, gently placing his hand on her shoulder, "you're helping other kids because of what you've learned." "That's wonderful," she beamed. "I want everyone to feel like I did when I got the doll. Want them to believe that someone cares." John's heart tightened. She didn't even fully understand what the words meant yet, but he understood. Lily had learned something bigger than toys or gifts. She had learned that hope could be real, that kindness could change lives, and that love didn't always come in obvious forms. Over the next months, John noticed other changes too. Work was still hard, but he was no longer constantly exhausted. The skills he had learned from the training programs allowed him to manage better jobs, work more efficiently, and even start saving a little. They could now handle unexpected bills without worry. They could plan small outings without fear of running out of money. It wasn't wealth, it wasn't luxury, but it was stability, and to John, that felt priceless. The man who had first brought the doll into their lives continued to check in from time to time, always gently, always respectfully. He never interfered, never demanded. He simply encouraged. Sent resources for Lily's learning, offered guidance for John's work, and even invited them to small gatherings where they could meet families who shared similar struggles. Each encounter reminded John that the kindness they had received wasn't a one-time gift. It was part of something larger, something built on trust and care. One day, John received a letter from the organization the man had mentioned months ago. Inside, there was an invitation for him to share his story, to help other parents who faced challenges similar to his own. John hesitated at first. Public speaking wasn't easy, and he wasn't sure anyone would care about his life. But he remembered Lily's words about helping other kids, and he understood that he could do more than just survive. He could make a difference. When he stood in front of a small group of parents sharing his experiences, his heart pounded. He spoke about the struggles of being a single parent, about the moments when hope felt impossible, about the tiny joys that kept him moving forward. He spoke about the doll, about the day a stranger showed kindness without judgment, about how that small act changed their lives in ways far beyond any toy. As he spoke, he noticed something remarkable. The parents weren't just listening. They were nodding, some quietly wiping tears, some smiling softly. He realized that sharing his story gave them permission to hope, to believe that change could happen for them too. It was a full-circle moment he hadn't anticipated. Way Lily had learned from the doll, others were learning from his honesty and experience. At home, Lily continued to grow into herself in ways that made John proud every single day. She started keeping a small journal where she wrote her ideas, stories, and sketches. Some of them were funny, some were serious, but all of them had heart. She often sat at the little table by the window, surrounded by pencils and colors, while John worked quietly nearby. Sometimes she would glance up and say, "Daddy, do you think I could have a gallery one day?" John smiled. "If you keep working, yes." "Why not?"